At the same time, it's important to recognize that independence does not mean isolation. A man living alone can still cultivate meaningful connections without necessarily being in a romantic relationship. He can invest in friendships, join communities that align with his interests, or contribute to causes he cares about. These connections provide the social nourishment that all humans need, while allowing him to maintain his autonomy. In this way, he finds a balance between solitude and connection, creating a life that is both fulfilling and self-directed. Is touch powerful? Loneliness also has a way of deepening empathy. When a man experiences the ache of solitude, he becomes more attuned to the struggles of others. This heightened sensitivity can inspire acts of kindness, strengthen existing relationships, and foster a sense of connection to the broader human experience. Far from isolating him, loneliness can become a bridge, reminding him of the universal need for understanding and compassion. The tension between independence and the human need for connection is not something to be resolved once and for all. It's an ongoing process. A man who lives alone learns to navigate this dynamic day by day, finding ways to meet his social needs while also embracing the gifts of solitude. In doing so, he develops a resilience and depth of character that enriches not only his own life, but also the lives of those around him. Living alone without a girlfriend for many men is not an accident of circumstance, but a deliberate choice, a way to structure their lives around personal growth and self-mastery. It's easy for society to misunderstand this decision, often reducing it to a narrative of avoidance or inability. But behind this choice often lies a deep sense of purpose, a recognition that meaningful growth requires focus, time, and the freedom to pursue one's priorities without distraction. A life lived intentionally in solitude offers opportunities for development that are often overlooked in a world that emphasizes constant companionship. One of the most significant aspects of living intentionally without a romantic partner is the ability to dedicate time and energy to self-improvement. A man who chooses this path has the freedom to assess his life objectively and ask critical questions. What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What kind of person do I want to become? Without the competing demands of a relationship, he has the space to focus on addressing these questions and working toward the answers. One of the ways that everybody gets a disease in healthcare is that if you ask anybody, cancer, 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 they're actually thinking of it in their head. This could involve improving his physical health through regular exercise, learning new skills, advancing in his career, or even exploring creative passions like writing, art, or music. This period of intentional solitude also allows a man to explore his interests and values without compromise. Relationships, by their nature, involve a degree of negotiation and shared decision-making. While this is a vital and rewarding aspect of partnership, it can sometimes dilute one's individual pursuits. A man living alone has the unique opportunity to immerse himself fully in his passions, to discover what truly drives him, and to build a life that reflects his values in their purest form. Whether it's traveling the world, starting a business, or pursuing a spiritual practice, he can channel his energy into pursuits that align with his personal vision. Intentional living also fosters discipline and structure. Without the external accountability that often comes with relationships, a man living alone must learn to motivate himself. This requires setting goals, establishing routines, and holding himself accountable for his progress. Over time, this discipline becomes a habit, reinforcing his ability to take control of his life and achieve what he sets out to accomplish. This self-directed approach to life builds confidence and a sense of agency, which not only enhances his current existence, but also prepares him for future challenges. Another benefit of living intentionally without a girlfriend is the opportunity to develop emotional maturity. Relationships can sometimes act as a mirror, reflecting back a person's strengths and insecurities. While this is valuable, it can also mask certain aspects of personal development, as people often look to their partners for validation or emotional support. A man who chooses to live alone must confront his emotions directly. He learns to process feelings like loneliness, frustration, or fear without relying on another person to alleviate them. This emotional independence is a cornerstone of personal growth, allowing him to develop a deeper understanding of himself and how he relates to the world. Moreover, this intentional solitude provides the clarity to determine what kind of relationships are truly meaningful. When a man steps away from the pressure to be in a relationship for the sake of appearances or societal approval, he gains the freedom to reflect on what he values in a partner. Instead of rushing into connections out of fear of being alone, he can take his time, building relationships that align with his values and aspirations. This ensures that any future partnership he enters into is rooted in authenticity and mutual respect, rather than convenience or external validation. It's also important to recognize that this choice to live intentionally alone isn't about rejecting relationships altogether. Instead, it's about prioritizing the foundation upon which relationships are built. A man who invests in himself during this time is better equipped to bring strength, wisdom, and self-awareness into any future partnership. By focusing on his personal growth now, he ensures that when he does choose to share his life with someone, he will do so from a place of abundance rather than need. Ultimately, the man who lives intentionally without a girlfriend demonstrates that life's richness and purpose don't depend on a romantic relationship. His choice is a testament to the value of self-reflection, discipline, and the pursuit of personal excellence. It is a reminder that while relationships can be deeply fulfilling, so too can the journey of becoming the best version of oneself. Choosing to live alone without a girlfriend often places a man under societal scrutiny, as mainstream culture tends to equate romantic relationships with success, maturity, and emotional fulfillment. This perspective, however, is deeply flawed and limited, as it fails to recognize the diversity of human experiences and the value of alternative paths to happiness. Rejecting the stigma associated with living a solitary life requires not only a shift in societal attitudes, but also a redefinition of what it means to lead a meaningful and fulfilling existence. A man who makes this choice demonstrates courage and self-awareness, reminding us all that worth is not determined by conforming to external expectations. Society has long conditioned people to view certain milestones, such as marriage or being in a romantic relationship, as universal markers of success. These cultural narratives are reinforced in movies, literature, and even casual conversation, where the question of "who are you seeing?" is often treated as an inevitable part of adult life. For a man who chooses to live without a girlfriend, this pressure can be overwhelming, as others may perceive his decision as a failure to meet societal standards or as evidence of some personal shortcoming. Yet by choosing to reject these assumptions, he reclaims his autonomy and establishes his own measures of success and fulfillment. This choice to live alone reflects a deeper understanding of individuality. Every person is unique, with distinct priorities, values, and circumstances. For some, romantic relationships may not align with their current life goals or personal aspirations. A man living without a girlfriend may prioritize his career, creative passions, or personal development. Perhaps he is healing from past experiences, or maybe he seeks clarity about his identity before engaging in a relationship. Whatever the reason, his decision underscores the importance of recognizing and honoring individual needs rather than adhering to societal templates. Rejecting stigma also allows for the opportunity to redefine relationships themselves. Just because a man chooses to live without a girlfriend doesn't mean he is devoid of connection or emotional depth. Instead, he may cultivate relationships that are just as meaningful, if not more so, through friendships, family bonds, or mentorships. These connections can be just as fulfilling and impactful, challenging the notion that romantic relationships are the ultimate form of human connection. By fostering these relationships, he creates a life rich in meaning and companionship without being tethered to societal expectations. One of the most profound aspects of rejecting stigma is the liberation it brings. When a man frees himself from the need to conform to external expectations, he gains the ability to live authentically. He no longer feels the pressure to seek validation through a relationship status or to follow a predetermined timeline for his life. This freedom allows him to focus on his personal vision for success and fulfillment, whether that means pursuing ambitious career goals, traveling the world, or simply enjoying the peace and solitude of his own company. By embracing this path, he becomes an example of what it means to live intentionally and unapologetically. Rejecting the stigma associated with living alone also challenges broader societal assumptions about happiness. While it's true that relationships can bring joy and fulfillment, they are not the only paths to these outcomes. A man who lives alone shows that happiness can be found in self-discovery, in mastering one's craft, or in contributing to something larger than oneself. By redefining happiness on his own terms, he invites others to question the societal scripts they have been handed and to explore what truly brings them joy. Additionally, this rejection of stigma can inspire others to embrace their own unconventional choices. In a world where conformity is often rewarded, living authentically requires courage. When a man openly chooses a life path that diverges from the norm, he challenges others to do the same. His decision becomes a reminder that there is no single right way to live, and that each person has the right to define their own path to fulfillment. Ultimately, rejecting stigma is about embracing individuality and rejecting the idea that worth is tied to relationship status. It's a declaration that life can be full, meaningful, and deeply rewarding, even when it doesn't align with societal expectations. For a man who chooses to live alone without a girlfriend, this path is not a retreat from life, but a bold statement of self-awareness, independence, and intentionality. It's a reminder that every person has the power to shape their own narrative, free from the constraints of external judgment. A man who lives alone without a girlfriend inevitably faces a reality that is often overlooked: the profound opportunity to redefine his identity on his own terms. In a world where identity is frequently tied to external relationships, societal roles, and predefined milestones, solitude offers a rare chance to step back, reflect, and truly understand oneself. This process of self-degradation is neither easy nor quick. It requires introspection, resilience, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. However, the rewards of this journey are immense, leading to a deeper understanding of who one truly is and what one values in life. One of the most significant aspects of living alone is the removal of external influences that often shape identity. In relationships, people naturally adapt to the dynamics of their partnerships, sometimes compromising aspects of themselves to maintain harmony or meet the expectations of their significant other. While this can be a healthy part of building a relationship, it also means that individuals might lose sight of their own desires, values, or goals. By living alone, a man has the space to strip away these external expectations and focus on who he is at his core. Without the constant input of another person's needs or opinions, he can explore his interests, beliefs, and ambitions without compromise. This period of solitude allows for a unique kind of self-discovery. A man who lives alone has the time to ask fundamental questions about his life. What truly makes me happy? What are my strengths and weaknesses? What do I value most? These are questions that often get lost in the noise of daily life, especially when one is focused on meeting the demands of a relationship. Solitude provides the clarity needed to confront these questions honestly and to explore answers without distraction. This process not only fosters self-awareness, but also builds a foundation for personal growth and long-term fulfillment. Her perspective speaks for themselves, and no attempt. Ladies and gentlemen, today I'd like to speak about a subject that is often misunderstood, even ridiculed, yet deserves thoughtful consideration: the life of a man who lives alone without a girlfriend. This topic, though seemingly simple, touches on profound questions about individual purpose, relationships, and the delicate balance between solitude and social connection. First, let's recognize the complexity of human life. A man who lives alone is not merely an isolated individual. He's someone who exists within the rich tapestry of society, yet chooses, for one reason or another, to remain apart in certain ways. Is this choice rooted in fear, In freedom? In practicality? The answer, of course, varies, and it's worth exploring each dimension. Second, we should examine the modern world and its expectations. Society today often imposes narratives about relationships. It says that without a partner, you're incomplete. Without a girlfriend, your life lacks validation. But is this assumption true? Or could it be that the man who lives alone is pursuing something greater? Perhaps something that transcends the need for constant companionship? Third, let's acknowledge the potential advantages of living alone. Solitude is often portrayed as a void, yet it can also be a wellspring of self-discovery. A man who lives alone has the opportunity to explore his ambitions and cultivate skills without distraction. He may achieve clarity of thought that others, entangled in the complexities of relationships, might never find. Solitude, when embraced correctly, can be a furnace for strength. But let's not romanticize it entirely. Humans are social creatures. The absence of a partner doesn't erase the need for connection. Even the most independent man can struggle with loneliness. That loneliness, however, isn't necessarily a weakness. It's a reminder of our shared humanity. The question then becomes, how does the man who lives alone navigate that need for connection while preserving his autonomy? Finally, we must understand that the decision to live without a girlfriend doesn't imply failure or inadequacy. For some, it's a deliberate choice to focus on personal growth, a career, or even spiritual enlightenment. For others, it may be a consequence of circumstance or past heartbreak. Regardless, it is a path that can be walked with dignity, provided it's walked with intention and awareness. Society has long been built around the idea of relationships as central to human identity. From the earliest forms of storytelling to the structures of modern culture, the notion of companionship has been elevated to an ideal, often portraying romantic relationships as a fundamental measure of personal success and fulfillment. When a man chooses to live alone without a girlfriend, he is not only stepping away from this norm, but is also challenging deeply ingrained societal expectations. Such a choice can invite judgment or misunderstanding, but it also offers an opportunity to question whether the traditional narrative about relationships is truly universal or merely one of many possible paths. The idea that a man is incomplete without a partner is deeply embedded in our cultural psyche. Advertisements, movies, literature, and even casual conversations often reinforce the belief that a meaningful life must involve romantic connection. People are subtly and sometimes overtly conditioned to see relationships as the ultimate validation of one's worth. This conditioning suggests that without a partner, a person must be lacking in some essential way, whether it's emotional depth, social skills, or the ability to love and be loved. However, this perspective oversimplifies the human experience. It reduces the complexity of individual lives to a single, one-size-fits-all blueprint. People have different goals, priorities, and circumstances that influence the paths they take. For some, the pursuit of a romantic relationship is central to their sense of purpose and happiness. For others, it is a priority that may come later in life, or not at all. To impose a universal standard that equates fulfillment with romantic attachment disregards the diversity of human aspirations and the countless ways people find meaning in their lives. A man who lives alone without a girlfriend is not necessarily rejecting relationships altogether. Rather, he may be prioritizing other aspects of his life. This could include professional ambition, creative pursuits, personal growth, or even a deeper connection to community or spirituality. By stepping away from the societal script that equates romantic partnership with success, he creates space to explore his identity on his own terms. He demonstrates that life can be rich and meaningful without adhering to conventional expectations. This path is not without its challenges, however. The societal emphasis on relationships can create a sense of external pressure, causing others to view his choices with skepticism or even pity. Friends and family might question his decisions, assuming he is lonely, unfulfilled, or incapable of forming connections. These assumptions, however, reveal more about societal biases than about the individual himself. They reflect the discomfort people often feel when confronted with a life path that diverges from the norm. What's important to recognize is that such divergence doesn't imply deficiency. On the contrary, it often requires strength, self-awareness, and resilience to live outside the boundaries of societal expectations. It takes courage to resist the narrative that one's value is determined by romantic status, and instead build a life defined by personal values and intrinsic purpose. Moreover, by choosing to live alone and focus on himself, a man can challenge and ultimately reshape the way society views relationships. He may demonstrate that relationships, when they do occur, are most meaningful when they are chosen freely, rather than pursued out of obligation or societal pressure. This shift in perspective encourages a deeper understanding of relationships as partnerships based on mutual respect and shared values, rather than as boxes to be checked off on the path to social approval. In stepping outside the traditional framework, the man who lives alone becomes a reminder that human fulfillment is multifaceted. His life stands as an example that success and happiness are not confined to any single formula. Instead, they can be found in the deliberate pursuit of passions, the cultivation of personal strength, and the freedom to define one's own path. Solitude is a concept often misunderstood, equated with loneliness or even failure, yet it holds within it the potential for immense growth, creativity, and self-awareness. A man who lives alone without a girlfriend is often seen through a lens of pity or judgment, as though his solitude were a state to be fixed. But what if instead we viewed solitude as a crucible, a space in which the human spirit can be refined, focused, and strengthened? To understand solitude as a gift rather than a deficit is to see it for what it truly can be, a powerful tool for self-discovery and personal development. When a man lives alone, he has the opportunity to hear his own thoughts with clarity, unclouded by the noise of constant interaction. The world is full of distractions, social media, endless demands for attention, and the often unspoken expectations of others. Solitude provides a sanctuary from this noise, allowing the mind to settle and focus. Without the presence of a partner, he has the freedom to direct his energy inward, to ask profound questions about who he is and what he wants from life. In this space, he can confront his own fears, desires, and motivations without external influence. Solitude also fosters creativity. Many of history's greatest thinkers, writers, and artists have sought periods of isolation to produce their most impactful work. This isn't a coincidence. Solitude allows for deep, uninterrupted thought, the kind of thought that leads to breakthroughs. A man who lives alone can immerse himself in his passions without compromise. As seen, whether he's pursuing a craft, building a business, or exploring new ideas, he has the time and mental space to push beyond surface-level efforts and create something meaningful. This creativity, born of solitude, can enrich not only his own life, but the lives of others as well. Additionally, solitude builds resilience. When a man lives alone, he learns to rely on himself in ways that those who are constantly surrounded by others may not. He becomes adept at solving problems independently, managing his time effectively, and coping with challenges on his own terms. This self-reliance isn't just practical, it's deeply empowering. It cultivates a sense of confidence that comes from knowing he can navigate life's complexities without needing to lean on someone else. In this way, solitude becomes a teacher, showing him the strength that resides within. However, solitude is not simply about being alone. It's about how one uses that time. For solitude to become a source of growth rather than stagnation, it must be intentional. A man who lives alone without a girlfriend has the chance to approach his solitude with purpose. Instead of viewing it as an absence, he can see it as an opportunity to build a strong foundation for his future. He can dedicate time to learning new skills, improving his health, or pursuing spiritual practices. He can set goals and work toward them with a singular focus that might be harder to achieve in a more socially entangled life. Importantly, solitude allows a man to cultivate a relationship with himself. In a world that often prioritizes external relationships, this internal connection is frequently overlooked. Yet it is foundational. When a man knows himself deeply, his values, his strengths, his weaknesses, he becomes more grounded. This self-awareness not only benefits him, but also enriches any future relationships he may choose to pursue. A man who is comfortable with his own company is less likely to enter into relationships out of fear or insecurity, and more likely to build connections based on mutual respect and shared purpose. Far from being a state of lack, solitude can be a state of abundance. It offers the freedom to explore, the space to grow, and the clarity to define one's path. It is in solitude that a man can truly discover who he is and what he is capable of, and in doing so, create a life that is both meaningful and uniquely his own. Living alone without a girlfriend often brings with it a dual reality, the freedom to be independent and the challenge of navigating loneliness. While society tends to emphasize the joys of partnership and community, it rarely acknowledges the complexity of solitude and the delicate balance between self-reliance and human connection. A man who lives alone encounters this tension directly, often experiencing moments of profound solitude alongside a natural longing for companionship. Understanding this balance requires looking at loneliness not as an enemy, but as a teacher, one that forces introspection and invites personal growth. Loneliness is an experience that almost every human will face at some point, but for the man who lives alone, it can be an especially constant presence. This loneliness is not necessarily about the lack of romantic connection. It stems from the absence of close, consistent companionship in daily life. Humans are social creatures, wired for connection. The absence of regular, meaningful interactions can leave a person feeling adrift, and a man living alone is not immune to this reality. However, it is precisely in grappling with this challenge that he gains an opportunity to grow stronger and more self-aware. In this part of our conversation, we'll discuss how success transcends opulence. Navigating loneliness begins with acknowledging its presence rather than avoiding or suppressing it. For many, the instinct is to fill the void with distractions, social media, television, or fleeting interactions that lack depth. But avoidance only prolongs the discomfort and prevents any deeper understanding of oneself. When a man confronts his loneliness head-on, he learns to sit with his feelings, to understand what they are telling him. Often loneliness reveals underlying desires for connection, purpose, or meaning that might otherwise go unnoticed. It becomes a signal pointing toward areas of life that need attention. In this sense, loneliness can act as a mirror reflecting back the parts of a man's life that require care or change. It might push him to seek deeper relationships with friends or family, to engage with his community, or to explore new hobbies and interests that bring joy and fulfillment. By listening to what loneliness has to teach, he can transform it from a source of pain into a catalyst for positive action. Living alone also encourages the development of emotional independence. While relationships often provide comfort and support, they can also become crutches, allowing people to avoid dealing with their own emotions. A man who lives alone has no choice but to confront his inner world directly. He learns to process his feelings, to manage his stress, and to find solace within himself. Yet all this emotional self-reliance is a powerful skill, one that not only benefits him in his current solitude, but also prepares him for healthier, more balanced relationships in the future. A man who can find peace within himself is less likely to enter into relationships out of desperation or fear of being alone, and more likely to form connections based on mutual respect and shared values. Redefining identity also involves breaking free from societal narratives about what a man should be. Traditional notions of masculinity often emphasize success in relationships, career, and family as markers of a man's worth. These expectations can be limiting, forcing men into roles that may not align with their true selves. A man who lives alone has the opportunity to question these narratives and decide for himself what kind of life he wants to lead. He can choose to prioritize personal growth, creative pursuits, or a life of exploration rather than conforming to a script that society has written for him. Another key aspect of living alone is the ability to embrace one's individuality fully. In solitude, a man can explore interests and hobbies without worrying about how they will be perceived by others. He might take up painting, learn a new language, or dive into a niche field of study that fascinates him. This freedom to explore without judgment allows him to connect with his authentic self and cultivate a sense of identity that is deeply personal and unique. Living alone also fosters resilience and self-reliance, both of which are essential components of a well-defined identity. When a man is solely responsible for his decisions, his successes, and his failures, he learns to trust himself. He becomes comfortable with his own company, confident in his ability to navigate life's challenges. This self-reliance reinforces his sense of identity as he recognizes that he is capable of shaping his own destiny and standing firm in his choices, even in the face of societal pressure or criticism. Importantly, the process of self-degradation through solitude does not mean rejecting relationships or connection altogether. Instead, it prepares a man to engage in relationships from a place of strength and authenticity. When he knows who he is and what he values, he is less likely to compromise himself in unhealthy ways. He can form relationships that are grounded in mutual respect and shared values, rather than ones built on insecurity or a need for validation. In this way, solitude becomes a path not only to self-discovery, but also to healthier, more meaningful connections in the future. This journey of self-degradation is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process. As life evolves, so too does identity, and a man who has embraced the opportunity to live alone is better equipped to navigate these changes. He understands that his worth is not tied to external markers like relationship status, but is rooted in his own sense of self. By choosing to redefine his identity on his own terms, he sets a powerful example of what it means to live authentically and intentionally. His life becomes a testament to the idea that fulfillment comes not from conforming to societal expectations, but from discovering and embracing who he truly is. Living alone without a girlfriend offers a unique opportunity for a man to cultivate a deep sense of self-reliance and independence, attributes that are often undervalued in a culture that prioritizes partnership and external validation. While society often views solitude as a deficit or a temporary state to be resolved, it can instead serve as a powerful framework for personal development. Unlike a man who embraces his independence learns to navigate life's challenges on his own terms, building the resilience and resourcefulness necessary to thrive. This process is not only practical, but also deeply transformative, shaping his character and fostering a sense of inner strength. Self-reliance begins with the necessity of managing one's daily life independently. Living alone means taking full responsibility for every aspect of existence, from cooking meals and maintaining a clean home to managing finances and setting personal goals. These tasks, while mundane, require discipline and organization, traits that become second nature over time. For many men, this responsibility fosters a sense of pride and ownership over their lives. They come to see themselves as capable and competent individuals who can meet their needs without relying on others. This foundation of self-sufficiency forms the bedrock for greater ambitions and achievements. Beyond the practical, self-reliance also cultivates emotional independence. In the absence of a romantic partner to share life's highs and lows, a man must learn to process his emotions and cope with challenges on his own. This requires developing tools for self-reflection, such as journaling, meditation, or simply taking time to think through problems. It also involves building resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks without falling into despair. Over time, these skills not only help him handle his emotions more effectively, but also make him less dependent on external validation or support to feel whole. Living alone also encourages a man to become resourceful in finding solutions to problems. Without the immediate input of a partner, he must learn to rely on his own judgment and creativity. Whether it's fixing something around the house, navigating a difficult work situation, or making important life decisions, he develops the confidence to take initiative and trust his abilities. This resourcefulness extends beyond the practical. It also applies to his ability to find meaning and joy in life. He learns to seek fulfillment through his own efforts, whether by pursuing hobbies, engaging with his community, or finding solace in solitude. At the same time, independence doesn't mean isolation. A man who lives alone has the freedom to build relationships on his own terms, choosing connections that enrich his life rather than simply fill a void. Friendships, family bonds, and professional networks all offer opportunities for connection without compromising his sense of autonomy. By maintaining these relationships while also standing on his own 2 feet, he demonstrates that independence and interdependence are not mutually exclusive, but can coexist in a healthy, balanced way. One of the most profound aspects of self-reliance is the sense of empowerment it brings. A man who knows he can navigate life on his own feels a kind of freedom that is difficult to replicate. He is not bound by the need to conform to societal expectations or rely on others for his happiness. This freedom allows him to take risks, pursue his passions, and make decisions that align with his values, rather than the seeking approval or avoiding criticism. In this way, independence becomes a gateway to authenticity, a life lived in alignment with one's true self. The independence cultivated through living alone also prepares a man for future relationships, should he choose to pursue them. A man who is self-reliant brings a sense of balance and stability to a partnership. He is less likely to enter a relationship out of fear of being alone or to place undue pressure on his partner to fulfill his needs. Instead, he approaches relationships from a position of strength, offering companionship and support without losing himself in the process. This dynamic not only enhances the quality of his relationships, but also ensures they are built on mutual respect and shared values. Ultimately, self-reliance is a deeply empowering quality, one that transforms solitude from a state of being into an active choice. It teaches a man to trust himself, to embrace his independence, and to find fulfillment through his own efforts. While living alone without a girlfriend may not align with societal norms, it offers a unique opportunity to cultivate resilience, resourcefulness, and a profound sense of autonomy. This independence, far from being a limitation, becomes a source of strength and liberation, allowing him to live authentically and thrive on his own terms. When a man chooses to live alone without a girlfriend, he is often faced with the challenge and privilege of taking full accountability for his life. In solitude, there is no one else to share responsibility, deflect blame, or provide a buffer for his decisions. This situation can be daunting, but it also serves as an unparalleled opportunity for growth. By embracing full accountability, a man develops an intimate relationship with his choices, learning to understand their consequences and take ownership of his successes and failures. This process strengthens his character, sharpens his decision-making, and prepares him to face life with a sense of clarity and purpose. Living alone strips away many of the distractions and external influences that can obscure personal accountability. When a man lives with a partner, there is often a shared distribution of responsibilities, which can sometimes make it easier to overlook individual contributions, or the lack thereof. In contrast, living alone means that every decision he makes, whether it's about finances, health, work, or personal growth, falls squarely on his shoulders. He cannot depend on anyone else to pick up the slack or fix his mistakes, which forces him to confront the reality of his actions. This unfiltered feedback loop is a powerful teacher, helping him to recognize patterns in his behavior and make necessary adjustments. Accountability begins with the small, everyday tasks that are easy to take for granted. Whether it's keeping his living space clean, paying bills on time, or preparing meals, a man living alone must manage every aspect of his daily life. These seemingly mundane responsibilities form the foundation of accountability. By consistently meeting these obligations, he builds discipline and self-respect. Over time, these habits extend to larger areas of his life, such as setting and achieving long-term goals or maintaining commitments to himself and others. The act of following through on his responsibilities reinforces his sense of integrity and self-trust. Beyond practical responsibilities, living alone also fosters emotional accountability. Without a partner to share emotional burdens or provide validation, a man must learn to process his feelings independently. This involves recognizing his emotional patterns, understanding their origins, and taking responsibility for managing them. For instance, if he experiences frustration or loneliness, he cannot simply project these emotions onto someone else or expect another person to fix them. Instead, he learns to sit with his emotions, reflect on their root causes, and take proactive steps to address them. This emotional self-regulation is a cornerstone of maturity and resilience, enabling him to navigate life's challenges with steadiness and grace. Living alone also requires a man to take accountability for his personal growth. There is no one else to push him towards self-improvement or hold him accountable for stagnation. He must become his own motivator, setting goals and working diligently to achieve them. This could involve advancing in his career, learning new skills, pursuing creative passions, or improving his physical and mental health. By taking responsibility for his growth, he creates a life that is dynamic and fulfilling rather than one defined by complacency or external expectations. Perhaps one of the most profound aspects of accountability is the way it reshapes a man's relationship with failure. When there is no one else to blame for setbacks, he is forced to confront his mistakes head-on. This can be uncomfortable, but it is also deeply empowering. By taking ownership of his failures, he learns to view them not as defining moments, but as opportunities for learning and improvement. Over time, this mindset cultivates resilience and adaptability, enabling him to approach challenges with confidence and optimism. Accountability also extends to how a man interacts with the world around him. Living alone does not mean living in isolation. A man who takes responsibility for his life understands the importance of contributing to his community and building meaningful connections. Whether it's through acts of kindness, volunteering, or simply being a reliable friend, he recognizes that his actions have an impact on others. This awareness fosters a sense of purpose and interconnectedness, reminding him that accountability is not just about individual success, but also about the role he plays in the broader fabric of society. Ultimately, embracing accountability transforms solitude from a state of being into a powerful practice of self-mastery. It teaches a man to take ownership of his life in its entirety, from the smallest daily habits to the grandest ambitions. By holding himself accountable, he cultivates discipline, resilience, and integrity, qualities that not only enrich his own life, but also inspire those around him. In choosing to live alone and fully embrace responsibility, he demonstrates that true strength lies not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them with courage and conviction. In conclusion, the choice to live alone without a girlfriend is often misunderstood, but it offers profound opportunities for personal growth and self-discovery. Living intentionally in solitude allows a man to focus on self-reliance, discipline, and emotional independence, all of which are essential for shaping a fulfilling and meaningful life. This path encourages self-reflection, accountability, and the chance to redefine one's identity on one's own terms. It empowers him to prioritize his values and pursue passions without compromise, fostering resilience and a deep sense of inner strength. Furthermore, by rejecting societal pressures and the stigma often associated with living alone, a man reclaims his autonomy, proving that happiness and fulfillment do not depend on conforming to external expectations. Ultimately, living alone is not about isolation, but about embracing the freedom to live authentically and intentionally. It is through this deliberate solitude that a man can cultivate the self-awareness, discipline, and independence necessary to thrive and achieve his greatest potential, both alone and in future relationships.